Let's talk now about research. Like you said, this is one of the best parts, if not the best part, about your job. And I saw lots of different cool, interesting things about how you go about your research. So I'm just going to let you share a few and kind of see where we go with that. So what would you talk about with regards to the research and what you like so much about it?
Well, I have to do it in Paris, number one.
Yeah,
so
that's a good place to have to start. Right.
Yeah. For me, it's about, I'm basically trying to put my reader on the street in the high heels, the stilettos of my detective.
Yeah.
What she is feeling. You're going to feel what kind of weather it is. You're going to hear the clip-clop, on the stilettos, on the cobbles. You're going to smell the butter from the bakery. You're going to hear that horn or the siren.
Right.
Or, smell the diesel. You're going to be on that street. You're going to see the newspaper headlines with what's happening that day at that time. And again, my books are set in the 1990s.
Yep.
So what's happening that day? Especially when I did Murder on the Quai, the prequel, it was like 1989. The weekend the Berlin Wall fell in November. Mm-hmm. And we had just had our little shake and bake here.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The big earthquake.
Yep.
Yeah.
The bridge collapsed and yep.
Yeah. So we had to, it's about putting the reader at that time, what was going on. The music of that day. Madonna was on her third hit. So they get to go to a party and have all the Madonna. So I got to do this. I do this little soundtrack in my mind.
Yeah.
Or on, what songs were playing.
Yeah.
And then the cell phone, which her friend had just gotten one. It was like a brick. Right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
But that was very cool. So it's about bringing reader, but it's about me finding those things. I go to the archives to look up old newspapers. I go to the archives for many kind of things.
And each arrondissement has its own archives, I think. So you can get very specific information related to that particular.
Right. If I want to see what that newspaper looked like. And I go down to Stanford to the library, and they have the Le Monde and Microfiche.
Oh, okay.
So I can tell you that day what the weather was, who was visiting, what dignitary, what strike was going on. Because as you know, there is always the strike in Paris.
At least one.
Yeah. So it's all there. Now, I'm not a slave to that because but I try to weave that in. Like, this is what's happening. Aimée can't go through there because the nurses are on strike yet again or something.
Right.
There's all these, the tractors are in from the countryside.
Right.
So it's just about that. So it's to put you in that time, in that place. And then, of course, I do research. My last trip, I was very lucky to go to the police laboratory where they check the DNA from the blood samples.
Oh, wow.
And the fire. And then I had lunch with the fire investigator, fire and explosion. So he goes in and, these are the top-notch people.
Fire forensics, like how the fire happened and figuring that out, piecing it back together, basically. Yeah.
And he told me about this case. You couldn't believe it. But then again, with our headlines today, we couldn't believe these things happened either. But this is a story you could hardly believe. But he went through, he said, this would be good for you.
Yeah, yeah.
He said, this is what we did. And this, you would never in a million years. But of course, at the end, it all made sense because it really happened.
Right.
So sometimes I get these golden nuggets, this gold I'm given, like I could really write about that because it happened. But of course, I fictionalize it and put it in that time. So I do a lot of research like that. I walk around the block, maybe many times. My husband is like, I'm going to wait in the cafe because I don't want to see how that grate in the street looks.
Yeah. Does he go with you usually when you
Not
go?
Not often.
Yeah.
No, he's just
learned.
He learned.
Yeah.
If I can't, let's forget it. Because I said I'm working. What can I tell you?
Right.
But it's also me just going there at different times of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Get off the metro, right? In the morning, people rushing to school, the crèche. In the midday, who's there? In the evening, people coming home, going for an apéro or whatever.
The
it's
sounds
just
are different. The activities, the light, everything's different depending on the time of day. Yeah.
Different kinds of people.
Yeah.
Definitely.
One thing that I read that you did that I like is you take your digital recorder a lot of times to record the sounds. You have that with you just use your phone
my
now.
iPhone now.
Yeah, you just use the iPhone.
Yeah.
But I think that's yet another great use of technology, right? But it also speaks to how important the sounds and the sensory experience is, as you just got done explaining, for bringing the reader into whatever the character is experiencing.
And the nuance of conversation. I can't remember everything, but if I'm in a cafe, I've ordered a coffee and someone comes in and they're having, then there's the whoosh of the milk steamer. the man who's bringing in the cartons of the wine, he's like arguing with someone in the back, and it's coming over, and they're doing the juicer and all that noise. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm so in the moment, but I can't write every tiny, I just record it.
Right.
So when I come home and I'm writing, I play that back and I'm back in that cafe.
Yeah. You know, I used to not take photos when I would travel because I just wanted to be in the moment. But then as digital photography came into being, and as when I started writing about places that I was visiting, everything changed. And I do it for that exact purpose, because one is I want to be able to experience the moment. I do want to observe and stuff, but I might want to kind of look into some of the details later. And so I'll just take the camera, and then it's less about taking pictures for pretty pictures. For me, it's similar to what you're doing with the recording is, okay, wait, where was that table relative to that entrance relative? So yeah, the technology is great for all of that. And
sometimes I pretend I'm on the phone and I record people on the bus, and because I don't,
great.
and I want to get the way they speak.
Yeah,
how they and everything. And one time I was on this bus with this older man and a young woman. It was the great one. Is it the 96 that goes from Belleville down to Montparnasse, crosses Paris?
Yeah, the whole
and through the arrondissements. And he was telling her as you're going through, it's all these different neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And he was about, I lived there when I was a young boy, or that's where and just listen, like he was like a grandfather. I don't think that was their relationship, but it was wonderful.
It was like a little history lesson.
Yeah. And the
one
way
you
he
wouldn't
spoke.
get otherwise. Yeah,
Exactly.
and the manner of speaking. And okay, we have so many things else to talk about. But one other funny thing you do that I read in your Paris Imperfect blog interview from 2011, you collected a whole suitcase full of something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
What's that? I thought this was great.
The yellow pages.
The phone books
the
from the
books,
90s.
Yellow and white pages.
Right,
yes.
right.
Yeah, my friend was throwing them out, and I'm saying, "What are you doing?" I'm throwing them out. No, can I have them?
Yeah. That was gold for you.
Yeah, it was gold. I bought a suitcase. I paid extra. I didn't care. I had, so I can look up people's names. And in the listing in those books, which are the time of my stories, I can go and look, okay, she needs to go to a dry cleaner in the 7th. And I can look by dry cleaner by arrondissement. Now, they may not be there now, or it may have changed.
It doesn't matter if they're there now, though, right? Yeah.
But again, it's plausible. It's like there was a dry cleaner, there was a cafe. It could have moved or whatever. Even the metro stations, like the entrances and exits, may have changed sometimes, or the bus stop is moved. But you're pretty solid.
Yeah,
there.
yeah.